Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your presence here and welcome to Akasha and Son's ongoing Tree of Life classes. Let's take a deep breath. I'm sure most of us are still breathing in the wonderful, uplifting energies of conclave. What a beautiful conclave it was, my goodness. In about 3 weeks, we head out on the road. Of course, we have some big events coming up in April and May. The first weekend of April, we're in retreat with the Masters in Saskatoon, and I think the third weekend of April, we are in that very important weekend in Calgary, where Mother Akasha and Mother Mary will be returning from the Great Central Sun to birth out of us, to release out of us all core perceptions against the divine feminine, against the mother principle of life. Such important work that is coming up. And then in May, we're heading to, I think, Toronto and Salt Lake City for our Toronto is always, of course, the focus on the soul, the door to everything. And in Salt Lake City is the annual Ascended Masters Earth Council, where the Ascended Masters come to us and they update us on events that they're watching on the earth, areas that they're trying to assist. And by bringing that to our attention, they invite us to assist them, to assist the planet. So we've got a big schedule, so we're just breathing in these last few weeks of March. And of course, spring is right around the corner. So happy spring to all of you. And we do have classes, I believe, this weekend. Yes. So deep breath. Mother Akasha has asked that tonight that we meditate on the 3 dynamic activities of life, consciousness, God. Use whatever word is most comfortable to you. The 3 dynamic activities of I am that the Ascended Master teachings reveal to us. She says that at some point in the meditation that she will just quietly move in and shove me out of the way. So deep breath, everyone. Make yourself as comfortable as you can. And closing our eyelids, of course, our first priority is entering into loving adoration, acknowledgement and acceptance and adoration of the great inner light and love of our divinity that is anchored within our hearts. As we lovingly acknowledge a sacred flame, a great love flame within our physical hearts, that anchors the presence of God in our lives on earth. And we just love and bless that great God flame that beats our heart. And today we enter into a contemplation of the 3 mighty activities that have long been hidden beyond those words, I am that I am. I am what I am. I am who I am. Deep breath. And we review those 3 dynamic activities. I am in its infinite expression. Mother, Father, God. God, Goddess, all that is. In all its infinite, immortal, and eternal expression. The source of all life in our universe. The divine mind and the divine soul. that have created this universe, all systems of worlds, the mighty infinite presence of life. The first great activity of I am. Deep breath. And in this contemplation, we remind ourselves what we have been taught. I am is the sacred name of God. I am is God in action. I am is the name of our own spiritual self, our true God nature, individualized. The second great activity of I am. The first, infinite. The second, individualized. And the third great activity of I am. The impersonal I am. Akasha asks us to be mindful of approaching the impersonal I am in much the way the Buddhist would. God is everywhere. God is in everything. And we remember that the impersonal I am is not so much the thinking I am that is infinite or individualized. Rather, the impersonal I am is the responding presence of life, of love, a responding state of consciousness that responds to the thinking, individualized, and infinite consciousness of life itself. The impersonal I am, the consciousness of a flower, of the powers of nature, the forces of the elements. The responding impersonal I am, the consciousness of an animal, of all kingdoms that share life with us. Flowers and animals and birds and trees that can lovingly respond to the thinking presence of God, the impersonal I am. Deep breath. And in this threefold dynamic activity of life, where am I? And who am I? In my awakening, I have discovered that I am the projection of the individualized presence of God on earth. I am that individualized thinking presence of God incarnate upon the earth. Long have I forgotten this true spiritual identity. And now that I am awake, and restored and returned and aligned with my God self, the mighty I am, the business that is before me is to once again on the earth become the individualized thinking presence of God. This process is a lifting, a rising up and out of ancient superstitions and beliefs, a restoration that requires the purification of our outer self, the emptying of our outer self, our human sense of self, that in our awakening we may become vessels, instruments of the individualized presence of God. And in that process, of deep realization, and in the resurrection, we become the actualized, individualized, thinking, creator consciousness of life. And beyond our own individualized evolution is the infinite creator, the infinite I am. And as we are awakened to our individualized God self, we restore our connection to the infinite I am, Mother, Father, God. Our beloved higher self, the individualized I am, draws upon the life of the infinite I am. I, upon the earth, I draw upon the life of my individualized I am, until I have become that I am, that I am. And in all my awakening and all my realizations, the path is set before each of us to actualize these mighty truths. And all around us is a world of life, from the leaf of a tree, the petal of a flower, and within the animal where life beats its heart is the third activity of God I am, the responding I am. And just as animals can respond to our loving care, or respond negatively to the aggression and destructive activity of humans, as each of us unleash our individualized God source through the lives that we have been given, as we are filled with more of the presence I am. And then as we lovingly acknowledge the responding I am, the impersonal I am within plants and animals, even within the substance of which pebbles and stones are formed of. When we acknowledge the impersonal responding I am, within the powers of nature, the forces of the elements, within the very oceans and seas, as we lovingly remember our own divinity, and we remember the divinity of God, the impersonal I Am, within the very fabric of life. When we speak to that life, we can calm a stormy sea. We can offer our love to an animal that has been injured. And the responding I Am within that animal, the responding I Am within the powers of nature, will recognize that we have recognized our own divinity, that we are growing in our divinity, that we daily are increasing in the presence and power of our divinity. And then the powers of nature and the forces of the elements, and even weather conditions that take on the discord of humans. All these elements will recognize, because those elements have the impersonal I Am, the responding I Am within them, and they will respond. They will recognize my own divinity that is growing. And as I fulfill my destiny to become God actualized, individualized, of the infinite Mother, Father, God, as it is written, that ye are given dominion over all that is, as risen gods of the infinite I Am. With all the love of our hearts and light in our minds, we begin to command the powers of nature and the forces of the elements. We love all kingdoms upon this earth, free of the discord that has been imposed upon them. Covenants restored. The Trinity of I Am consciousness, active, alive, restoration. And in all this recognition and actualization, as I draw upon the presence and power of my individualized God self I Am, and as my I Am self draws upon the greater life and power of the infinite I Am, and as I recognize the impersonal, the responding I Am, that even abides in every cell of my own physical body, as this becomes our new and greater way of life, healing and transformation and transmuting substance into a higher vibration of light and love becomes our way. A child comes to us with a bruise on their arm, and our loving touch upon that bruise, as we quietly acknowledge the impersonal responding I Am, as the very skin, the very cells of that child's body. The impersonal I am of God within that child responds to my loving, healing touch, and instantly the bruise disappears. And these are my beginning days. New life. And this gives me meaning. What so many people truly look for: meaning in their life. And as we each orchestrate these deep realizations and hold a burning desire within us to actualize these mighty truths, even the substance of which mountains and forests are made of will respond to my loving acknowledgement, my loving adoration that God is everywhere, the impersonal I am. The sovereign Trinity of I am in action. Infinite, individualized, and responding. And thus I see the way before me. And thus I understand that in these states of transformation, in these states of becoming, I become an untouchable. Sovereign in my individualization of Mother, Father, God. And I am a naturalist, and automatically knowing the God presence and all life. And in my future days, if there is an attacking, vicious animal moving towards me, my sudden knowing of the impersonal I am, that is the very life of that animal, my sudden adoration of that will subdue and remove the viciousness that is acting in that one. And that animal will reproach me with the same love. And thus it is that I am gaining a greater understanding of what it means to come to that place, to live in this world. A world that seems to hold so many dangers, to live in this world and no longer touched by all that is wrong. Deep breath. I lovingly embrace the three dynamic activities of consciousness, of God, of life. Long hidden within those mystical words. I am what I am. I am who I am. And I am that I am. Deep breath. And Akasha is with you, my precious hearts. These are mighty truths. Truths and seeds that you have been piecing together in your awakening. A brain that is now more connected to your spiritual heart will favor not only your remembering these truths, but the ability of your mind to use your brain. And it helps because you know the truth. You are, in some areas, a step ahead of science that does not yet hold distinction between the brain and the mind. You understand, and there is now enough evidence in the world of individuals who have had out-of-body experiences, not in their body, yet fully aware, not using the brain of their body or any functionality of their body, for whatever reason caused that out-of-body experience, realized, I'm here still, I'm alive. Maybe I should get back into my body. Or maybe I'm watching my body go through the transition, the change called death. And life is allowing me, as part of my own continued awakening, to see this. And to see that even though the body has failed me, and the shadow of darkness silences, yet I exist. And then the next room, the next school of life opens and draws you in. Evidence is everywhere. Futurists, literaturists, screenwriters, films, an explosion of consciousness. The tininess that has existed upon this planet, that has destroyed so many lives, that has shut down magnificent civilizations. The tininess of human life that has become grotesque in some generations and centuries, where no light or positivity of any kind existed. History is full of all of this. The written word and modernization of technology has been sufficient for humankind to chart, to watch, to record their own historical progress. At the very least, 3,000 years. And as archaeology continues to advance with the hand of science, the written word going back to Mesopotamia and Persia and beyond 7,000 years will give the present day race of people more and more history of the rise and fall, the rise and fall, the ebb and flow of human consciousness, where up until this last century, the majority of that has been mostly destructive. The tide has turned. The cosmic clock has struck past midnight. A new hour, a golden age is set to unfold upon this earth, even though there is yet no evidence, if you look too closely and too long at the ugliness that is in this world. If you do that, you can miss what is precious in this world, what is wonderful in this world. People, life, and kingdoms of life that share with you upon this planet. Appreciation, respect is growing. Conscience, lost in the shackles of hatred past, is being freed. The mass majority of people, even those who are not yet awake, are growing such a heart of conscience. The understanding and respect of families, and people becoming more attentive to what is really important. These things, from above, we are watching a mass improvement, even while the horrible little spots of ugliness that will show up and pit one people against another people, nations against nations, ancient, boring, war-torn entities that would love to incarnate in your world again to bring about a third world war, are actually so far from that happening that all they have is actors, players. The hour is too far gone. And I say to you, precious hearts, no more real are the actions of foreign Western nations such as NATO and other nations such as Russia. No more real is their war games as Western nations under the flag of NATO parade their military through Eastern nations of Europe who are now free of the ancient Soviet Union. And as Russia marshals an unprecedented 400,000 troops readiness, responding to NATO being right in their backyards with their military exercises. I say to you, beloved hearts, the reality of that becoming a physical reality of war is no more real than the reality of a World War III that you watch in a film. They are but players. They are acting out an old consciousness, an old boys' club, an old world consciousness that I speak are the tiny parts of hatred that have ruined and wrecked people's lives century after century. And why is it that that will never be, at a world scale, another physical war? Why are they just pawns, actors? And what they are doing is no more real than if those actors, those leaders were in a film acting it out. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because the people will not follow them. The people will not follow them. No one in the Western world will follow them. And people in Middle East countries, such as Afghanistan and Iran, that have lived under the shadows of death and hatred so long, are so tired. They are so tired that they are willing just to lay down and die. The world will change so dramatically. And that change that is happening is only instrumental because today there are tens of millions of people around the world that are freeing themselves from the superstitious, well, maybe superstitious, beliefs that religions have cast upon them. More and more people today are holding and knowing a sacred space that you can be spiritual and not religious. And all of you are spearheading a light into your lives, and your consciousness is radiating that light out, and it is touching people in ways that you do not even yet know. I asked the messenger to connect with what we taught you in previous days, the three activities of life. Infinite, what we think of as Mother, Father, God. Individualized. And I would love to say that you are all the individualization of the infinite. Well, that's not quite accurate. The truth of you is that you are the individualization of the infinite. But as you know, that you fell asleep and forgot that you were the individualization. Now you are awake and upon this path of becoming that again on earth. Do you think that 13 million years in which the people of your earth, we have watched the people of earth lose their way for 13 million years. And we have watched them build and crash civilizations of worlds. We have watched the people of earth destroy 2 whole continents. And now, we are watching. You are a very large group in this world. Thousands of you who have chosen this path. But this path is not an exclusive path. It is one of many spiritual paths, and everyone awakening must attune to the various spiritual paths that upon study will provide themselves the best opportunity to break the shackles of reincarnation, step off the wheel of birth and death, awaken and be ye gods once again. And to this glorious victory, the ascended masters have come to the earth. Most people are not listening to us. Millions are. And the millions who are listening and studying the truths that we are giving, they are changing their lives, carrying a sovereign and a sacred and a higher consciousness. What is going on out in the world is touching you less and less and less. Yet the work is not done. If it is possible that you yet can catch a common cold, if you yet can come down with the flu, you cannot declare that you are untouchable. Yet that is the goal. Over this last month, I have adjusted my discourses slightly. You know what I have spoken into. Almost a month has gone by, and I've asked you to examine, to be very honest with yourself. I've asked you to look at the psychology of your own communication with God and ask yourself, are you demanding God around? Are you trying to make God your servant? God, do this. God, do that. God, do this. And of course, the wonderful news is that God, life, and of course, the God I speak is not the God you find in religions. And if you think that I'm talking about the God that you find in religions, you will have no way of understanding what I'm talking about. You are awake. You have been liberated by those superstitious beliefs. Consciousness, life, endless light, endless love, divine mind, the soul of the universe and all life upon this earth. What a huge bridge. What a great leap to take. Or is it? When I say to you, precious hearts, God has never stopped being God. You stopped being God. Why don't you allow that message deep into your being? When we think of God the Father, God the Mother, infinite Creator, that aspect of the Trinity that I asked you to meditate upon this night, that God has never stopped being God. On a starry heaven, on a starry night out in the prairies, you can look up in the indigo skies and you can see the precision of the universe and all its perfection. In the morning, you can witness dew upon a leaf, a flower rising. The morning sun, the evening sunset. God is being God. God is doing the things that God does. Perfection. It is you, precious hearts. It is you that stopped being God. I and a son have always said, if you find solace, if you find peace, entering into any house of worship, a synagogue, a temple, a church, a mosque, whatever it is, if you find some solace, if you find some peace because of whatever communion is going on in you, then go and be in those places. But the most important thing for you to recognize is that the true mosque, the true temple, the true church, the true synagogue abides right here within you. And that you realize, precious hearts, it's me. It's us. We are the ones that stopped being the individualization of God. If you are the individualization of something greater than you, you are that which created you, with the opportunity to even become greater. These are laws of our universe. Beloved hearts, while the vast majority of the people of earth have lost contact with the angelic host, the vast majority of the people of earth have lost contact with the spiritual hierarchy. Well, there are other systems of worlds. There's the wonderful Orion system. There's the entire Pleiadian system. There's the Arcturian system of worlds. And I say to you, the magnificent races of intelligent beings They have communicated with your spiritual hierarchy. They have communicated with your Jesus Christ, your Buddhas, your Muhammads, your prophets, and said, don't you think you should recall them all? Don't you think you should just remove all of them? Send them back to their Creator and have them start over again. That might be easier. Well, there have been many conferences, but that has never been something that's been approved. Why? Because life knows that you all will one day figure it out. And when you start figuring it out, there will be so many in this world that will be ready to shut you down because you're ready to expose that the people of earth have lived in boxes of their own belief systems, pit holes of their own beliefs, and you are breaking it all free. And the more you make yourself remember, have you really held an animal that's been domesticated, and really held that animal and said to that cat, that dog, I acknowledge the presence of life within you, the responding presence of God. I know you will respond, and I acknowledge the God presence that beats your heart, little kitty. And you pour your love, and the animal responds with love. You are so quickly on your way home. But you've got to understand that this impersonal I am, that is kind of the hardest to grasp. You can grasp God, Creator, all that is infinite and immortal and eternal, omnipresence incorporated. You can acknowledge that. Because somewhere, even within the religious beliefs, there's some fathoming of that higher consciousness. That's doable. The next big challenge you all faced was to acknowledge your own divinity. Of course, the moment you started to acknowledge your own divinity and that you had a higher self that was the very individualization of God the Infinite, born-again Christians are ready to trample you down. Well, that hour is far too late. How is it possible in 100 years? Yes, 2 horrific wars, and then powers came into your world and silenced those war entities that were behind World War I and World War II. So that the people would have a chance of awakening, coming back to their heart, having light in their mind, grooming a race of beings, humans, back into their intelligent, sovereign beings. And there's always got to be those that are the leaders, that will be the gatekeepers, the way showers. It is your destiny. How is it that filmmakers, literaturists, screenwriters, engineers, scientists are more intelligent today than 200 years ago? Did somebody just wave a hand? Abracadabra? This is the light increasing. within people's consciousness. They're using their minds more. This is the love increasing in people's hearts. And you can't stop it. You can't contain light in a box. You can't contain love in a box. And since 1900s, the early 1900s, early approaches, even beginning in the late 1800s, early approaches to metaphysics, higher consciousness. And it has been unstoppable. It may not be in the billions, but it is in the tens of millions and tens of millions of people who are starting to carry a higher consciousness. You can't contain that light within you. And as you acknowledge that that light that is within yourself is all-knowing, and when you acknowledge that love that is growing within you is all-powerful, it is that key of acknowledgement followed by adoration that each of you just transmit these frequencies from you. People can pick it up from you. People love being around you. And it's changing the mass of the people. I have a question for you. Will the people once more be brought to the brink of catastrophic conditioning? They were, and that existed between 1910 and 1914. Catastrophic conditioning. And that brought on World War I. And existed again between 1934 and 1939. Catastrophic conditioning of the people of Earth. And that brought on World War II. The bad guys, the Illuminatis, the banksters are losing grip so fast. An undercurrent, an underworld movement of people, young people who are talking to each other, using technologies, are almost making their parents and the way they live their lives absolutely ignorant. And more young peoples. The people of the earth don't know it, but they are allowing Hollywood and Bollywood and other places to act out on film the changing shifts of consciousness. People walk away from a film. It stays with them. It shifts them. Between Bollywood, which is bigger than Hollywood, do you know where that is? Between the two, the impact of films is moving waves of consciousness, shifting people into a much bigger state of beingness. This greater state of sacred consciousness, higher consciousness, is almost beginning to become pervasive. A whole new group of young people just coming up through the ranks with levels of genius. And there's all of you by the millions and tens of thousands awakening. You're not awakening to become genius, to bring through some technology. You are awakening to become God upon this planet so that you can oversee the vast changes that are going to be the resurrection of the finest civilizations that have been, all brought forth into this mighty new golden age that is upon this planet. I have an obligation and I have a responsibility to each of you to see to it that there is not only a son and myself, but those in the spiritual hierarchy upstairs, archangels, goddesses, beings from other star systems, that they have the opportunity to come and speak to you, to teach you, because these are your days of becoming. Behind you mostly are the days of needing to let go and empty yourself. And even coming up against situations in your life in which, in inquiring of yourself, what should I do? The best advice comes from your own heart. Let go. Let go. Let go. Because there's an aspect of your divinity, and it's pushing. It's pushing. It's pushing on your heart and your soul. It's the activity that has been absent upon this planet. It is the love of the Heavenly Mother. The love that fulfills everything that light can conceive. And that love is rising up. And it's pushing out everything foreign to itself. Everything that has rejected it. For long have the people within the earth, most have not faced their core perceptions against God the Father. Most are yet blaming God the Father. Most people of earth have not even thought of the existence of God the Mother. Most would say, if you confronted them, do I have anything against God the Mother? And they would say, hell no. I didn't even know God the Mother existed. That is how deep they have buried it within themselves. And all of you have been readying through stages in your life, experiences in your life. How do you come up against what you do not even know is the greatest and the deepest sorrow of your life? And you have to be prepared for this. Because if you're not prepared for it, you can intellectually hear it, but absorb it, do anything with it, that's another thing. But this is what is coming. I worked with you, precious hearts, for years, knowing many of you were former Catholics. Many of you were former Baptists or different religions. And I urged you, do not throw out those beings of which religion has been formed around. Don't throw out the Buddha. Don't throw out Mother Mary. She's real. And as she herself has said to you, she's no Catholic. She was a Jew when she was in your world. She was an Essene. And I've urged you, stay with the prophets. The religions are not anything that they taught today. Love them. So many people do not come under the blessings of a great spiritual hierarchy. So many people know nothing about the great Archangel Raphael, the great Archangel Gabriel, Michael, and because they know nothing, they don't come under the blessings. Anyone, precious hearts, anyone in any moment could put their arms up. Beloved archangels, Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, Shamuel, Zachiel, and on and on. I acknowledge you, great brothers, great archangels of the angelic host. I love you and bless you, and might you shower me with your archangel blessings. And just breathe in and stay in that place open and receptive for 2 minutes before you go on with your day. Who amongst you who have not been awakened cannot on any day turn your attention upwards? Because you know these great ascended beings, you know they live in the 5th dimension, so there's no point looking down. They live up there. To the great goddesses, goddess of peace, goddess of faith, goddess of hope, charity, light, justice, liberty, rose, unity, love, great goddesses, I acknowledge your existence. I've often said to you, how would you feel? And I ask you to go into this place right now. How would you feel if no one believed that you existed? How would you feel? Even here in your present day world. You'd say, well, I'm here. That's what these great goddesses say. It's not our fault you can't see us. You made yourselves so dense. If you fill your eyes with light, you'd see us. They're real. And you could turn to them. Fill me with your love. But you can also turn to a rose. You can extend your hand to a Siberian tiger. And with such a presence of love and God inside you, walk towards a Siberian tiger, just knowing the impersonal I am. The presence of life beats the tiger's heart. And just desiring to connect your God being with the God being of the tiger. And you walk right up. And the tour agent says, what are you doing? What are you doing? Come back. As you walk up to that polar bear, or a Siberian tiger, or that beautiful cougar, you know that God is the life of that animal. It's not intellectual. You know it in your hearts. And because the life of that animal knows that you know, it responds to you with such love. This is a magnificent future, precious hearts, that stands before all of you. Put yourself right back in the center of it all. Why do I worry? Why do I get small? Why do I stress? Why do I struggle? God, life, love is all above me. All around me is the impersonal nature of God. I'm just going to drink it up and bless everything. I thank you, precious hearts, for considering my sharing with you this evening. I am Akasha, and I thank you for your time. Namaste. We love and bless you, Mother Akasha. Deep breath, everyone.